All righty, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is the Del Valley Sports Pod number 38, and we have a very special guest in the house, the new co-host of the 97.5 The Fanatic Morning Drive Show, Kincaid and Salciunas. His last name, Andrew Salciunas. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
What's up, guys? I'm sorry that 38 will be the worst one, and I'm glad that the first 37 were successful.
It's going to be a great one. It's the Kenyon Barner episode. What are we talking about?
Yeah,
Wow.
Kenyon
Okay,
Barner,
there it is. Bust out. I've gotten the term "bust out" from Andrew. I swear. So we started something a couple weeks ago. He named it the Brian Westbrook episode, and then last week I went Sean Considine. So then I challenged Dan. I'm like, we need to come out with a bust out Philly sports athlete every week for the number of episodes.
I love
it. Kenyon Barner is a good one.
That's
so
awesome.
To introduce people who are listening to the podcast who don't know you are, Andrew Salciunas, a South Jersey native, Temple alum who went from intern at 97.5 The Fanatic to producer to now co-host of one of the most premier spots in sports radio, Morning Drive in a major market. Did you expect to be here when you started The Fanatic? What was that, 10 years ago?
No, I didn't, honestly. So I've told the story on the air. You know about it. I wasn't really the best student or best kid or anything. So there was a night where me and my buddies were about to go out to like a frat party or something. And it was a Thursday night. I still remember it was a Thursday night. And my now wife said, "Hey, can you call me real quick?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure." And you know how those phone calls went. It wasn't 5 minutes. So it was like 30 minutes or whatever. And by the time I went back downstairs, the guys that I was going to go out with, they were my roommates. They fell asleep on the couch. And I'm like, shit, well, like, what do I do now? I'm not about to go to this frat party by myself like a loser. So I was like, let me do something productive. And I applied to internships, which is a weird thing to do after like a very weird thing
it speaks to your professionalism.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. So a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from Eric Camille, who was the executive producer at the time. And he's like, "Hey, are you still interested in the internship?" And I was like, "Yeah, that I remember doing that. Yes, I'm in." So once I got there, I was like, I fell in love with radio, and I wanted to do anything I could to get a job, because again, as an internship, it's a competitive field, and I learned so much about behind the scenes stuff. I learned so much about producing, production, everything not on air, and I fell in love with it so much that I thought that was the path I was going to take. And I got hired in 2014. I didn't really crack the microphone until 2017. And so like then I started to fall in love a little bit more about, being on the air and what it took to be on the air. And then I kind of just never looked back. Now, Morning Drive, 10 years later, did I expect that 10 years ago? No, I didn't. But here we are, man. I'm loving it. It's been a lot of fun.
You've been killing it. I listen when I can. I was telling Dan before we got on, it's obviously a major change for you going from middays to mornings, and you're one of the few guys who has to show up at work before I do, because I have to be at work at 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're one of the few guys who actually understands now what it's like. I'm sure it's a change for you.
It is, but I got a 2-year-old at home, and the kid still doesn't want to sleep like any other kid in the world, so I'm kind of used to it. And I almost forget about this stage in my life. For about 6 months, I actually was the update anchor for when Mark Farzetta was the Morning Drive host.
Mm-hmm.
There was supposed to be somebody else who was supposed to do updates, and they weren't ready yet. So they asked me to do it because I had already been doing it for the midday show at the time. And all of a sudden that 2 week, it's supposed to only be 2 weeks. It turned to 6 months. So I kind of got used to getting up a little bit different. I would literally stroll in at 6 o'clock and do the update. I didn't really type a script because I would watch all the games. So still earlier, but between that, having that experience, and then, being dad now, I'm kind of used to getting up early. But there are some days like, yesterday, I probably had too much fun at night, and I was like, 4 o'clock. And when that time came, like, that's still that adjustment period that I'm trying to figure out.
You look at overtime and extra inning games in a different way now.
Yeah, dude. Like, here's the thing. I'm 30 going on 60. I'm a day drinker. I'd rather like do stuff during the day so that I can get my beauty sleep, right?
Preach.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't a big fan of Sunday Night Football, Eagles games as it was, because I would be tired. I like to go to bed, man. Like I know I'm a loser, but now that I have to get up at 4, it's like shit. I'm really glad the Eagles collapsed last year. Hopefully they're gonna have 1:00 games now because they tanked so much last year.
God, so many primetime games. But to bring you into where Dan and I met, so obviously when we first met back in the day, I was living in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Dan and I met at the Eagles bar in Pittsburgh. We just ran into each other just about every time that we were there. And I've told this story. The reason this podcast happened is because he and I stayed in contact because of Philly sports. We text back and forth, be like, hey, this is what's going on in the Phillies. Like, what are your thoughts? And then around this time last year, I called him or he called me. We were on the phone for like an hour and a half and it felt like it went by in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, every time I talk to you about Philly sports, it goes by like nothing has happened. And it was the easiest thing ever. Asked him to do a podcast. A year later, we're here. We have you on the podcast, which is a pleasure. So that's where we are. And like Harry and Jason used to say,
like sports is such a beautiful thing, right? Like here are you two guys, like you didn't go to high school together or anything like that. You're just showing up to a bar in Pittsburgh for an Eagles game because it's a similar passion. You go, oh, this guy's pretty cool. And you guys start talking. I mean, that's the beauty of sports. Like I get this all the time. I was talking to one of my neighbors and he's like, he was asking me about the Sixers or something. He goes, I'm sorry. Is it like, do you not want to talk about it because you do it for a living? I'm like, dude, I do it for a living because I love it. Like, that's why I do it for a living. I didn't go into sports talk radio to be some jock on the radio. No, it's because it's all I know. I don't know math. I don't know calculus. But, I would not. Honestly, dude, if I ever get fired, I'm screwed, man. Like, this is what I do. So that's the beauty of sports, man. You can get to know people. I mean, Colin, through what I do, I've gotten to know you, man. And it's really cool. I mean, sports is such a blessing. You get to meet people through it.
Absolutely.
I think when you called me with the idea, I was literally at home on the treadmill watching a Flyers game.
Nice.
Poetic justice, It's funny. You telling the story, it's like, wow, our relationship is completely built on Philadelphia sports. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't even know what's going on in each other's actual personal lives. But you go, hey, man, take a look at Bryce Harper's 3 home run game. Right? I mean, it's great. Like we all have those friends, right? Like we have the friends that you only text during games with, right? I mean, that's the beauty of being a dude, right? If we're being honest, like the joke that's always on social media, like having fun is going to a bar and just mentioning random third string quarterbacks, like that's great.
Well, speaking of random players, Dan, did you want to open up the icebreaker?
Our favorite question to ask anyone that comes on, favorite Philly sports athlete of all time, or a couple honorable mentions because we know it's hard to pick one, but if you had to,
like favorite is in like I actually like them, or are we going? You want to go bust outs here?
Favorite, when you just think of your most favorite. Any Philly sport athletes from the time, childhood, adulthood, whatever.
So Allen Iverson's my hero. I doing what I do, you kind of lose that starstruck aspect of life because we talk to athletes, we talk to coaches. There was a day where we were at a Sixers game. They put the station in a suite, and we were watching the game. And in walks in a 6-foot guard out of Georgetown. And I've never cheesed so hard in my life. I was like, I am totally going to be unprofessional here. And I don't give a damn. Like I have the picture on my phone. I will never get rid of that picture. Right. Even though like I'm losing space because I'm taking pictures of my son every single day. That one's not getting deleted. You know what I mean? So Iverson, it will always be the 1 seed, but Colin, like Phillies are near and dear to my heart. So that 08 squad, there's a lot of guys from it. Yeah. J-Roll is my favorite Philly of all time. When he was about to break Mike Schmidt's all-time hit record, I went to like 4 games in a row. I was paying, again, I wasn't making any money and I just kept on buying tickets because I wanted to be there the moment that it happened. Because he was that special to me. And then Chooch, I was a big Carlos Ruiz guy. I taught in high school and like all throughout Little League. So I always had that appreciation for a good catcher on a baseball team, especially one that wins a World Series. And you hear every single pitcher, like Roy Halladay, all those guys talked about how great it was pitching with Carlos Ruiz. So if I was to do a Mount Rushmore, right? It's Iverson, it's J-Roll, it's Chooch, which is amazing, right? So I got
That's awesome.
I got Hall of Famer Allen Iverson, hopeful Hall of Famer Jimmy Rollins, Carlos Ruiz, and then B-Dog. I mean, I think I would imagine Brian Dawkins is everybody's answer at some point.
I have never seen Dan at an Eagles game without wearing a Brian Dawkins jersey, so I think he could say the same.
I think it's a safe one. I think that's a safe one.
You get a lot of crap in Pittsburgh wearing an Eagles jersey, but I don't think I've ever gotten any crap when wearing a B-Dog jersey.
So I went
to the cap. That's all you can do.
In 2004, remember the Eagles and Steelers were both 7-0. I went to the Eagles-Steelers game, the one where the Eagles got handed their first loss. And to your point, I was, in 2004, I was like 10 years old.
We were in 4th grade, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and, I'm walking down the aisle, and we sit down, and there's this just nasty lady behind me. People talk about how we're awful as Philadelphia fans. Yeah, you made a mistake making that drive over here.
Found yourself a Yinzer.
I'm turning around thinking that she's talking to my dad. I was there with my dad, my uncle, and my cousin. And I think she's talking to them. No, she's talking to me. You're going to regret this, kid. I'm like, lady, you're scaring me. Like, I feel like it's Billy Madison. Like, lady, you're scaring us. And and then the Eagles got destroyed in that game. To her credit, in the 3rd quarter, she bought me a Coke. She was like, here, I'm sorry. Like, you made the drive and you seem miserable. I was like, yeah. First off, my team's getting crushed, and you were being, you weren't really nice.
Having lived there for 4 years, I can tell you that's the difference between Philly and Pittsburgh. Is Pittsburgh, they would have bought you the Coke. Philly, they would have bought you the Coke and probably dumped it on you.
Yeah, exactly. It was horrible. But come on, I'm a little 10-year-old kid. It's not like I was walking down doing the Eagle wings. I was amazed by seeing Heinz. Right? I was like, oh, look at that ketchup bottle, and here's this lady yelling at me like, "Come on, man."
But to get to the Phillies, I know you don't have much time. You're a busy man. Also, the Sixers are on, and I'm jealous of you because your job is to watch and talk about sports. So I don't want to hold you from that. But I do want to pick your brain on a couple of things. Now, the Phillies are 2-4 to start the season. Not the start I guess we wanted to, but I guess we could start last night. Turnbull and Pinto, the night before last. Last night sucked. Were you at that game? Sorry, I know I'm all over the place, but
no. So I was supposed to go yesterday. We had a couple listeners that we were going to go with, and then the game got moved to 4. And my son leaves from daycare, so I couldn't go to the game. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll take him with me. And then I started seeing it's going to get moved to 8:00. I'm like, I'm not doing this. So that sucked. But yeah, look, 2-4, rough start, but I don't want to do the whole, hey, remember the last 2 years, but remember the last 2 years. Yes. And at the same time, it's 162 games. The thing I will find funny is some of the players, and look, I was in spring training and I spoke to a lot of the guys while I was down there. Everyone kept on saying, look, we're expecting to get off to a hot start this year, right? And now through 6 games, you're starting to hear it's a long season. It's going to be okay. It's like, all right, well, that's not the tone that you guys had in spring training. And trust me, they were all motivated. Every guy that I talked to, they were ready for this season. They were ready to mean business. They're still going to be that fun dancing on my own group, but they look like they have different business to take care of this year. And they realized that they fell short. They realized that, look, congratulations to the Texas Rangers last year. They should have beaten the Texas Rangers in the World Series. I'll say that too. And I think they realized that. But yeah, it's a rough start. It's going to be okay. They'll make the playoffs. I just hope people don't do the whole wake me up when they get to the playoffs part, because it's going to be a fun season either way. With all the frustrations, it's going to be fun.
Oh, just took a couple games ago, 3 home runs topped off with a freaking grand slam. We got Bryce Harper to start this season.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that was one of the biggest things going into this year was, this team's going to be good because Bryce is coming into the season. I think we all expect Trey Turner to have a better year too, even though it's been a pretty rough start. Your rotation's great. That hasn't been the problem, right? The starting pitching has not been a problem except for one guy, and we hope that he turns things around. I think that's going to be the next 7 years, right? He's going to have some great outings. He's going to have some great stretches, but there's going to be some games where you're just frustrated. But, the other 5 starts, Wheeler dominant in 2 games. It's a shame that both of them were wasted. You mentioned Turnbull. That's an amazing story, right? A guy that was horrible last year. It was his first year coming off of Tommy John. And then the Pinto story, he comes in the 4th inning. Which is
wild.
amazing. Like, that's movie stuff. But the good thing is the starting pitching's been really good. The bats will turn around at some point. I think it's hilarious that we always say just wait till hitting season, where every other team doesn't seem to have a problem with hitting season in April. But they'll get there. I'm not worried about them yet.
Well, it makes sense up here because as I'm looking outside, it's about 45 and cloudy, and I'm sure it's the same down where you are.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get through it once it warms up. I know, just wait till June. Schwarber will be
Schwarber season.
This team's so weird, right? That's why we love them. Like, they don't make sense. They can be horrible for 3 months to start a season and then just click. And they're so talented. Like, on paper, I know the on paper thing is something that we always get caught up in sometimes. Like, look at the Eagles. Like, last year on paper, they were supposed to be a Super Bowl team. But seriously, I mean, these guys, baseball is a tough sport. But if you look at the back of the lineup card on the the baseball card, the numbers normally play out. Like, Kyle Schwarber's not going to all of a sudden only hit 15 home runs this year, right? He's going to be around 40 home runs. Trey Turner, as awful as he was last year, ended up hitting 27 home runs and ended up hitting 260, right? It ends up getting close to what their career averages are unless they're hurt or they're just done. And all these guys are in their prime. So I'm still in a good place right now with these guys.
I'm happy that baseball's back, for one. My question to you before you get out of here, and Dan, I'm sure you have one or two. Have any of your 5 positive predictions that you put out the other day changed through the first 6 games?
All right, so my 5 positive predictions: Trey Turner will be an all-star. I can't through 6 games take that away just yet. I can't. Look, if he's still swinging at pitches outside the zone in 2 weeks, then maybe we're gonna have to revisit that conversation. But I'll still give him the time. Harper, I said he'll look like vintage Bryce Harper. I know he was 0 for 11, but 3 home runs in a game tells me that vintage Bryce Harper is still there. Ranger Suarez will win a Gold Glove was one of them because I think he will actually pitch enough innings this year. And that was a good first start for Ranger Suarez. Great first start for Ranger Suarez. I think he'll be fine. The other 2, the Nola one, I said he'll be a Cy Young finalist this year because I thought he would settle down after the contract was signed. Should I back off of that after one outing? No, I shouldn't do that. But it is alarming that the first game was home runs, which is what we were watching all last year. But how good he can be when he locks in. So I'm not going to back off of that yet. You guys know how I feel about Johan Rojas. He shouldn't be on this team. Like, I think he's a incredible center fielder. He is incredible on the base paths. The problem is you have to get to the base paths first. The guy can't hit. He can't hit. And I know everybody keeps on saying, well, if the Phillies are losing, it can't just be because of Johan Rojas. You're right. But there are going to be times where there might be 2 men on in like the 5th inning, right? Let's say it's two on, 2nd and 3rd in the 5th inning, and he hits a tapper back to the pitcher or he strikes out. And now the approach changes when there's 2 outs for the next batter, for Kyle Schwarber, for anybody. And he's been an automatic out. And so that's going to have to be revisited. Everybody in Philadelphia wanted to give him 2 months. I wanted him to start in AAA. So we'll see how that goes because that prediction was they will win no matter who's in center field. And he's been in that negative offensively so far.
I appreciated your predictions. I'm looking forward to seeing how they turn out as the season goes on.
Yeah.
I said 94 wins, immediately turned to 93 after game 1. But I'm still hopeful. I hope we're right back where we were the last 2 seasons, beating the Braves. You and I are going nuts at a live watch party.
Absolutely.
Watching the Phils in the postseason.
Yeah.
Dan, to you.
Fun ride, man. And I think the over-under was 90.5. I took the over, right? I can't give you a number, but I said take the over, and I think they'll be there. I don't think in the month of September they'll be 15 games back of the Braves, right? Not that it's mattered the last 2 years, but I do think it's a bit closer. And then we'll see what happens come playoff time. I mean, this team is still built rotation-wise 1, 2, and 3. And then the bullpen, I know opening day was a meltdown, but the bullpen is deep. And you have a guy like Gregory Soto yesterday was awesome, right? He strikes out the side. And that's a guy who I loved that trade. And I think people think he struggled last year. He pitched almost every day the first 2 months of the season because there were injuries and Topper overused him. And then he was kind of cooked at the end of the season. So if he's used well, I think he's going to be another added piece of that bullpen. And, you know how deep this bullpen is. This team is built for the playoffs. They just can't go silent offensively like they did at the end of the series last year.
I agree. I think he has a really high ceiling. And to the slow start, I do think it's fair to say the first series was against the Braves. Now, I don't want to crown them, but they are one of the best teams in baseball. They, from a roster standpoint, frankly, they may have even gotten better. And then this next series is just disgusting, filled with delays and rain. Like, I can't, the players are out there to play, but at the same time, you're watching and you're like, geez, why are we doing this?
It sucks. Now,
it's
the
miserable.
One thing about the delays, like the Reds also played in that series, right? And the Phillies dropped 2-3. You're right about the Braves. Like, you don't want to crown them just yet. But I've said this a million times. I think the Braves and the Astros are the two best franchises in Major League Baseball. They just know how to continue to build, how to continue to bring guys up through a farm system. And I'll give the nod to the Braves because they're also great with contracts. I mean, it's criminal what they're paying Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies, but they got ahead of that a while ago. They lost Freddie Freeman and said, all right, we'll bring in Matt Olson, right? Austin Riley is there on such a cheap deal. And look at the pitchers that they bring up all the time. Like, that is a great organization. It sucks that they are in our division, right? Because the Phillies might win the division in other divisions. It's just they are in the same division as what I believe is the best franchise in Major League Baseball. And I hate saying that because they're a division rival, but they're incredible. So you're right. I mean, you dropped 2 of 3 to start the year. It's not the end of the year, and at least you got one. I mean, you were on the verge of getting swept in that game, and you were able to come from behind and win it. So, it's we're 6 games in. Right? Like, let's not start panicking yet.
Really quick last one here. I know you got to get going. As far as guys currently on the roster or in the minors right now, are there any young breakout guys you see for this year? Any potential breakout guys?
I think the roster's set. Center field was obviously the biggest question mark. That was really the only position battle in spring, and it ended up not being a position battle. It was very much like Reed Blankenship with the Eagles. Like, they said, oh yeah, this is our starting safety. This undrafted free agent that played like 6 minutes last year. He's our starting safety. It was kind of like that with Johan Rojas. They kept on saying, yeah, there's a position battle. I saw Christian Pache beat him out in spring training, but Johan Rojas was your starting center fielder. So other than that, I mean, you're not going to move anybody else, right? Your lineup is your lineup. You're going to mix guys in every once in a while, like a Whit Merrifield, but I don't think there's going to be some savior in the farm system that's going to come on up. If anything, if they need to make a move, they'll make a trade. But you always have to keep an eye on guys like Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm. Can they take that next step forward? You can't pay everybody $25 million a year like your star players. So those guys are two to continue looking on, even though we already know those guys and what they've been able to do for the Phillies the last couple of years. But, I guess keep an eye on Turnbull, because who knows what this guy is, right? He was a highly thought after prospect and was actually good to start his career. But then Tommy John derailed everything. Maybe they have a guy that can be a back-end rotation star for them, because you don't know what the deal is with Taijuan Walker, right? I know he's thrown in some simulated games right now, but you need arms, even if he's coming out of the pen. So I guess that's the one guy to focus on that we haven't seen in years past. But for the most part, your lineup's set. You're not going to be making any changes.
All right, Andrew, it's been a pleasure. Speaking of Tommy John, though, one last quick thing. Do we see Andrew Painter in 2024?
No, he's
not even if they make the playoffs.
No, I don't think. When I was down in spring training, I talked to a couple people down there. He is on pace from the schedule, but on pace means 2025, okay, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe in 2024 he's pitching in not the Arizona Fall League, but maybe in Single A or something, and then eventually pitches in the Arizona Fall League. I don't think we're going to see him in a playoff run. Okay. And remember, last year they wanted to start him on the roster right away so that he can build himself up for a playoff. So I don't think they're going to all of a sudden throw Andrew Painter out in a playoff series. So I would not expect seeing him until 2025. And let's just hope that it's not like a Sixto Sanchez situation where it just keeps on getting delayed back, more and more and more. Everything that I've heard is that he's on pace to be back when he's supposed to be back, but that won't be till next year.
Fair enough. Fingers crossed. Well, we will let you get to watching the Sixers. We are also intrigued in watching that game. It has been an honor having you on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I appreciate it.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. If schedules ever line up again, we'd love to have you on down the road. Maybe we can do a post like All-Star break, talk about the Phillies, something like that.
Yeah, make sure it's another weird number where you can give me another bust out player at the beginning. I would appreciate it.
We will make sure that happens.
All right, fellas. Thanks for having
Andrew.
me.
All right, good stuff. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. There he is, Andrew Salciunas, host of Kincaid and Salciunas on 97.5 The Fanatic, live with us on the Del Valley Sports Pod. That was fun. That was a good conversation.
Heard it here first. Good stuff coming from Andrew there.
Yeah, I met Andrew for the first time about 6 years ago. I had conversed with him via Twitter just because, I asked him questions because he was on the radio and I was not. And, he and I just kind of talked back and forth, whether it be social media or otherwise. And I, at one point, got in the studio with him to kind of get a live behind-the-scenes look at what it's like at the Fanatic, which was very cool. And, that was January of 2018, so about 6 years ago. That was the first time I met him in person. I have met him plenty of other times beyond that. But great guy, very talented, very hardworking. That's why he is a morning drive host at the age of 30 in a major market like Philadelphia.
Shout out to his friends for being nappers.
Yeah, seriously. If his friends didn't fall asleep, he might not be where he is today. So shout out to those.
Baby. Shout out. Hey, actually, I was probably one of those guys in college. I would get hammered and fall asleep before going out to the party all the time. Good friend right there.
That is a good friend. So
it was fun to hear him talk a little bit about Turnbull. Admittedly, he's a guy that I'm not as familiar with his background. I knew who he played for, but wasn't really sure of his story. So pretty cool to hear his take on Turnbull and kind of the unknown quantity that he is.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I knew his name. I did not know anything about him, prior to his start on Tuesday. So he looked great. 5 innings of one run ball, I think. Yeah. It's been a couple days. Last night's game was so awful and dreary that it clouded the memory of everything that was positive the day before. And every day kind of seems like the same day lately here in Philadelphia because it's rainy and cloudy. It almost feels like Pittsburgh. I'm not going to lie.
So we're talking about a guy that went 5 innings through 83 pitches, no walks, 3 hits, 1 run, but it was not earned, and 7 strikeouts. That's pretty incredible. It's a pretty good stat line.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at his numbers now. Had a 7.26 ERA last year in 7 games. Not great. 31 innings pitched, so small sample size. Yeah. But 2 years prior, as Andrew alluded to, he had Tommy John surgery in 2022. 2021, sub 3 ERA in 50 games pitched. So it seems like he's got some stuff. He had that injury, and now it's figuring out what he's going to be now.
And he's coming from the Tigers, and I know that was back. He didn't start with the Tigers or it was back in 2016. But if you look at what the Tigers pitching staff's doing right now, if that's any indication of them being able to identify talent.
Yeah, the Tigers aren't very good and haven't been.
No. Their bullpen and pitching staff is unbelievable so far this year. They got a lot of talent over there pitching. A lot of young talent. Their bullpen has pitched over 20 innings, I think, and they've let up. Well, after today's game, I think they did let up a couple runs in game 2 against the Mets, but their pitching has been really amazing to start the year. A lot of young talent over there.
That would be my bad. Apparently, I need to pay more attention to baseball as a whole and not just the Phillies.
Well, we just saw a demonstration of what happens when you assume things. That's all.
Well, I remember it vividly. Last year, I was like, "Oh, the Diamondbacks, they're shit," right? In like June when we were talking about it, and you're like, "Oh, contraire, the Diamondbacks."
That's funny. That was very early in the year. We should have called that back when the freaking playoffs were happening. That was early in the season. I said, not so fast. Kind of gave him a shout out. I should have pulled that puck and put it in your face there, Paul.
I was like May or June, and I remembered that as the season went on. Wow. I was like, they got an easy stretch here. Like they got the Reds, they got the Rockies, they got the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks suck, and you're like, Not so fast, my friend. And they're like, Diamondbacks are actually pretty good this year. They got a young, feisty core. Lo and behold, they beat our ass in the fucking NLCS.
Corbin Carroll.
3
more words, lots
Gallen.
of lettuce. Lots of lettuce.
I hate Chase Field. I'm sorry. It's just bringing me back to
just awful in every way.
Terrible, dude. I was there firsthand. It's awful.
Awful. In person, awful. And on the TV screen, still awful. But Garrett Stubbs, shut your mouth and don't talk about the damn pool, okay? Anyways, speaking of Stubbs.
I thought you were going to talk about last night, his game.
Ooh,
he got it right in the nads.
Check on that, man.
He got it right in the nads, bottom first.
Golly, Joey,
and we're like,
watching it with me.
It's first game of the year.
So bad. Jeez, Garrett.
First game of the year. We're thinking he's going to need to come out in the bottom half of the first inning because he got whacked in the nads with a curveball.
Yeah, vibes were not high.
Real quickly, I know we're going to talk Phillies pretty heavily here. I was at the game on Saturday when they lost to the Braves 12-4, whatever it was. I can speak for 50,000 people in attendance and everybody watching on TV when I thought the season was over.
Yeah.
When I saw Bryce Harper's cleats over top of his head falling into the dugout.
Yeah.
Can you be kidding me with this? Everybody in the entire stadium went silent. And we're like, he fucking tore his ACL. He got a concussion. He's out for a month. Season's over. It's game fucking 2. And then he comes out. He's like, I'm all right. I'm all right. You were talking about a roller coaster of emotion.
I need to know about, since you saw it, it was really tough to see on TV. It looked like, for watching the video on TV, it looked like he had the collision and then like 2 seconds later, the ball dropped down. Did the ball simply drop down from the sky, or did it like go and hit something in the stands or something and then bounce back onto the field?
No, I think it hit the screen above the dugout.
Okay.
And then dropped down into the camera well area.
Okay. Because if you watch the video, it looks like he completely horribly misjudged the ball. He went way too far, dumped into the camera well or whatever it's called, and then 2 seconds later the ball drops like on the field. But that's helpful to know because you can't see the full picture. It's very up close.
I could not see the ball. I was in like the furthest corner of left field watching that play, so I was as far away from Bryce Harper as I think you could be at the stadium. But given your analysis of that video where the ball just dropped, it had to have hit the screen above the dugout and then fallen down, because all I remember is seeing him track it, and then his feet are over his head, and he's upside down in the fucking dugout, and we think he's dead. The whole stadium thought, okay, Bryce Harper's dead, our season's done, it's game 2.
I felt like people were ready to kill that camera guy. Dude, hop off the camera and catch our savior. How is there no one there to assist that man? Come on.
Well, I said it to the people sitting next to us. I was like, I love Bryce Harper, and everybody in the city loves Bryce Harper because of what he just did. But that is a result of somebody who has never played first base in their life. They don't have the surrounding wherewithal to know when they're going to fall over the dugout railing, whereas somebody who's played first base for a very long time, especially in a major league stadium, knows, oh, don't go too hard for this ball because you might kill yourself.
Maybe. I'll give you a maybe, but I'll also give you not.
That was my thought.
You're comparing Bryce Harper to the average first baseman, and I don't think I do think it's fair to say, I don't think the average first baseman plays with the same fire and what's the word? Not carelessness, but like reckless abandonment. That's what we're looking for as Bryce Harper. And I think that is also true in effect. I mean, didn't he make a catch like this last year, very early on when he started playing first base? Didn't he make a great catch over the wall? Did he not?
Yes, that sounds very familiar. I don't think he quite flipped over the wall, but he
yeah.
definitely reached over and tipped. Yes, that sounds familiar. I couldn't tell you which game or what number who they played, but yes, I can guarantee you. All right, I can't guarantee you. It sounds very familiar, and I would say you're correct.
Obviously you're also right that experience is certainly the greatest teacher, and I think I heard something. Maybe it was during yesterday's game. I heard some, or actually it might have been during like a John Boy interviewer podcast. I think that the Phillies are looking into building up the wall a bit higher.
Because of Bryce Harper or just in general?
Well,
yeah.
In general, but yeah, Bryce Harper is going to be our first baseman for the long foreseeable future. So, it's more likely that us changing the wall is going to prevent him from doing it again than us just telling him to be careful. So I think that's why they're just going to build a wall. I think.
Build that wall, Phillies. Build that wall.
By the way, it's Phillies. It's still Phillies, but I had to watch it today because it crossed my mind because of this whole Bryce Harper thing and the whole idea of a Phillies player trying to make a wild catch or running into a wall. Greatest Phillies catch.
Aaron Rowan.
It's Aaron Rowan, and it's not close at all. I watched it again 10 times today, and I watched his like little interview afterwards. I had forgotten a little bit about the post game where he looks like he was in a fight. He has the broken nose, and he's got scratches and bruises all over his face. That was the greatest catch I'd ever seen. Not just because it was an incredible catch, like basically a basket catch running full speed. That over the shoulder, that is so hard to do. But he played center field. He knew the wall was there, and he talked about reckless abandonment. That was a Bryce Harper-esque play, and he ate a metal fence with his face and walked off the field. That was the greatest catch I've ever seen, not just because of the skill, but because of the badass nature. And by the way, a detail that I had forgotten about: that was a bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2 count situation.
Was it really?
Yes.
No shit.
Yeah. Do you think the pitcher might have bought him a beer that night there, Colin?
I hope he bought him the whole damn bar and a couple of strippers.
Jeez, I forgot about that part. Man.
I didn't even remember. I mean, we were still somewhat young at that point.
And it was, I think, against the Mets. I believe it was in 2007. Yeah, we were pretty young. And I think it was against the
07.
The Mets.
07. And this brings me back to something I heard on the radio. They were giving out tickets for trivia question, or chance to win tickets for a trivia question, and it was based on Phillies and opening day. And the question was, who was the Phillies opening day center fielder in 2007? The guy said Shane Victorino, and the host was incorrect, sir. It was still Aaron Rowan at that point. And I knew it from a fact. I'm like, that was Aaron Rowan, because that was the year he broke his fucking nose.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I wasn't on the phone, but I said in my head, I'm like, everybody's going to say Victorino, but it was still Aaron Rowan, right? Mm-hmm. 10 seconds later. Yeah, it was Aaron Rowan. I'm like, nailed it.
That's tough because I don't think Rowan was with us I don't know if it was just 1 year, but he certainly wasn't with us for that long. If he was with the White Sox before us and the Giants right after us.
I think he might have even gotten replaced by Victorino at the end of 07. Maybe. I can't remember. But should we relay the Ricardo Pinto story to the people who have maybe not heard it?
Tell them.
Okay. So if I miss any of the details, Dan, by all means, step in here. But I've listened to enough Phillies coverage and sports radio to where I think I have it all nailed down. So Ricardo Pinto, who apparently pitched for the Phillies in a couple starts in 2017 and then has since been relegated to minor leagues across different countries. He was in the Iron Pigs farm system this season. He gets recalled on Tuesday because Connor Brogdon was designated for assignment after his grand slam giving up winning home run on Monday night. Connor Brogdon, won't see you no more. R.I.P.
You say hello. I say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Adios. Anyway, Ricardo Pinto recalled from Lehigh Valley, who was playing in Rochester on Tuesday afternoon. Gets
Rochester,
on
New York?
Yes, which is almost in Buffalo. And if you know anything about Philadelphia to get to Buffalo, it's a long frickin' drive. 7 hours with traffic, which they hit.
Which they hit.
They did not get to the stadium until after the game started. He had to be dropped off in center field, at one point escorted through areas of stands where fans were, was walked into the clubhouse, shook hands with Rob Thompson in the 4th inning, put on his jersey. He also signed his contract in center field when he got out of his car, because he has to sign his contract before he can do anything with the Phillies.
Awesome, dude.
Signing his contract in center field gate, walking into this. Anyway, he puts on his jersey. He's in the bullpen, the batting cage underneath behind the locker room. Comes out in the 6th inning, after Turnbull only gives up 1 run through 5. Pitches a fucking gem.
So this was like his first. Well, I guess in spring training he probably met the catcher, this was Stubbsy. This was Stubbs, right?
No, Stubbs was last night. It was still JT the night before.
Okay.
We're talking Tuesday. Stubbs was yesterday, I believe.
No.
Was it?
No, because I was watching the Stubbs game. I wasn't at work, so that
you're
Tuesday.
You're correct, because I was also not watching last night's game because I was at bowling.
That hat, by the way, is still so awesome. I just had to say it once.
Mine?
It's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. So that was, I guess, in spring training these guys meet, but that was the pitcher's first time meeting Stubbs since the season started, I guess. But I guess they mean spring training. So.
But regardless, this guy is on a 7-hour car ride from Rochester, New York, gets dropped off in center field, then pitches 4 innings, ended up giving up three earned runs, 2 of which were in the 9th, but he pitched 4 innings as a reliever and looked really good. Had a lot of stuff. His movement on his slider looked really, he looked way better than some guy they just recalled from Lehigh Valley.
And you could tell that he was tired towards the end there. He started losing his stuff a little bit. He was getting smacked a little bit, but it was pretty cool that he toughed it out and saved the pen, essentially. It's a real shame that he saved the pen for what was not. Well, we didn't score any runs really the next game, so you can't really blame the pitching too much. But I do think that the driver's not getting enough love in this story. I feel like the driver's name should be a part of this story. I feel like the driver should be throwing out a first pitch.
Oh, that man should be lauded. Absolutely.
The driver, he or she, they need to be getting more love in this story. I'm a little disappointed that we don't know the name of this hero that brought us this man that got us a 4-inning save.
I do not disagree. It is a yeoman's job to drive somebody 7 hours as your job, and
the pressure of that, though, man. You're looking at the clock. Honestly, they were probably listening to the game on their way, which is crazy. Like, that's a crazy thought. They're listening to the game, and they're just hoping that obviously he had to have known in advance that he's doing the thing. He's in the back of the car changing into his uniform. That was that's our next interview. We need to figure out the driver of that car. We need to get that interview as our next interview here.
Dude, that would be wild. I might have to do some digging. I'm going to see if I can find out who this legend is and get him on the podcast, because you are exactly right. He needs recognition.
Yes, or she. Who knows?
He or
also,
she.
We don't have a helicopter like a private jet. No one. No.
Well, yeah, the Phillies have 2 or 3, but they're not going to send one to pick up a prospect who might never pan out, because that would be a very high expense.
We want him to play in the game. Shouldn't we get him in the game we want him to play in? That's all I'm saying.
That's what they make cars for, Dan.
Hey, listen, we don't need him until the 5th inning.
Who cares if he shows up in center field at 5:55? Who cares?
He can warm up in the car. He's fine.
So that was
That's
the,
an unbelievable
I didn't
story.
even
Baseball has the best stories. I do feel like baseball has the best stories.
sometimes they do.
The Reds guy, they were telling a story about the guy in the Reds. His name isn't Martini, but for some reason that's the name that's coming to mind. The guy that plays outfield, he's like a 33-year-old, maybe rookie, plays outfield his first game of the year. He hit 2 home runs. Yeah, it is Martini.
Yeah, I was gonna say Martini.
Nick Martini.
Nick, yeah.
He was like on the Phillies taxi squad or something back years ago.
During COVID, yes.
During COVID, okay.
Yeah. He was on the taxi squad. He literally spent 4 months in a hotel and never got to play, but he was still being paid by the Phillies to like live on his own and work out. I remember hearing about that.
It's cool. He's just one of those classic baseball guys that's just trying to, it seems like, kind of keep his head above the water, stay in the system, and now was on the opening day roster for the Reds this year and hit 2 home runs. Cool. Baseball's got good stories, man. It's got good
baseball lifers. I mean, Rob Thompson's even one of those where he was considering retiring. And to think he was hired under Gabe Kapler, went from Gabe.
Don't ever say that again. God, I hate Gabe Kapler. He's such a freaking douchebag, dude.
I know, but
now all he does is he posts his muscles and different steaks he makes. And
we have to at least acknowledge his existence.
No, we don't have to do that.
Okay.
Just say he was hired by a guy that once coached the Phillies.
Well, he was hired by the previous head coach prior to Joe Girardi. And then was considering retiring. And then Girardi gets banned, and he's like, well, I guess it's my time. And then they go to the World Series. And then they almost go to the World Series again. And now he's a staple head coach in the MLB after thinking he was going to hang it up.
He's like everybody's like Philly Rob.
Philly Rob.
Also, just have to another storyline. Once a Philly, always a Philly, because someone is playing out there and talking out there like they have Phillies tattooed on their chest. And that's Rhys Hoskins, who is currently wearing, shout out. We love you, Rhys Lightning, who is currently wearing technically a Brewers uniform, but he's still talking smack, calling the freaking, Mets and McNeil crybabies, who I can't stand McNeil. I think I've said it before in this podcast. The reason I can't stand McNeil is because his bat has no knob, and it's disgusting to look at. It's just a piece of wood with no knob at the end. I hate it. It's a stick. He hits with a stick, not a bat. And, Rhys Hoskins, who everything that I've listened to, okay, not just everything that I've listened to is like, it wasn't a dirty slide. Also, they reviewed the play, and they said that it was a legal slide. They literally reviewed it, and he didn't get dinged for it. And McNeil is still throwing a fit because he's a freaking bum loser, as Rhys Hoskins said. When things aren't going good, he just complains and starts being my entire team sucks Mets. The Mets and Marlins have a combined, what's 8 plus 5?
13.
13. They have a combined 1-13 record to start the year, and that feels great. But go Rhys. Shout out to Rhys.
The Marlins are the only winless team in baseball, correct?
Wow. They are. Nice. And the Marlins' biggest strength is their biggest
losing.
Well, their biggest strength is that they have this unbelievable, very gifted, young, talented group of arms. And 2 of them are getting Tommy John. Another one's hurt, and they're depleted to start the year, which is crazy. And they just seems like both the Mets and Marlins already have so much drama in their clubhouses going on to start the year. It's great. Braves are really good, but at least we got the Mets and Marlins to laugh at. But shout out Rhys.
And the 5th team in the NL East is the team we will see this weekend in the Washington Nationals.
Nice segue.
In their first road series of the year. Now, Dan, we could probably talk for another hour and a half about the other 3 sports in Philadelphia, but it's almost 8:00, and I don't know if you've looked at the score of the Sixers game. Have you?
Sure have, Jim.
They look pretty good so far.
Guess who's back, brother? Did you see the last game?
Embiid. I did not get to see the game. I was too focused on Bryce Harper hitting 3 home runs. And I still don't have Wi-Fi, so I have one phone where I can stream a game. So
yeah, it was Embiid's first game back, and of course the team all of a sudden just has this magic back to them.
Yes, they do. I was very torn between watching the Phillies and the Sixers, but I'm still on that wait and see approach. Now, if this game continues the way it does, and for those of you listening, it is 7:51 p.m. local time, and your Sixers are beating the Heat 17-2.
It won't continue because this is what the Heat do. This is what the Heat do. The Heat,
is it?
Yeah, the Heat start this way. They'll start sluggish. They'll go down 20 points, but then they'll play unbelievable defense and they'll slowly climb back. Duncan Robinson will hit some threes. Butler will start going, oh, I'm allowed to shoot the ball. Okay, I guess I'll try to score too. Sometimes he just doesn't shoot, whatever. But this is what they do. So it won't be, it will not be this way the whole game.
I mean, is that a result of Spoelstra, the coach, or is that just the team the way it is constructed?
I don't know. And I don't know probably the X's and O's of basketball enough to watch and see if there's specific strategy changes that occur, if they're do a feeling out kind of thing. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that this is something I see a lot with the Heat. Great. I feel like, though, anytime you have a team that has really, really good lockdown defense, which the Heat have always been a team that just must coach defense really well, a team can climb back, because they can shut you down and then, of course, finally put some points on the board. But they do. They have a really good defense.
Well, let's go Sixers.
Yeah, go Sixers.
I am looking
to see Embiid back.
I'm looking forward to watching the end of this game once we get off the stream here. But I do not want to rush things because there are 2 other teams. Do you have anything else on the Sixers with Embiid's return? Do you want to put out a prediction here right now? I mean, if they beat the Heat tonight, 6 might be possible, the 6th seed, and not play in the play-in tournament.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to get it because even if they win tonight, they're still a game and a half out with 5 to play.
No, my biggest takeaway is I'm a little bit surprised and just happy to see Embiid's playing again. I was kind of wondering if he was going to do in every other game, ease into it. I know it's not a back-to-back, but still, I mean, I don't know. I thought that they would maybe have him play one game and take the next one off, maybe go every other just to be super cautious. So I'm just, more than anything, I'm kind of focused on, okay, good to see that Embiid is playing again. I think Embiid has a history of this, that I don't know if you know this, he gets injured all the time. When he comes back from injury.
No shit, really? I didn't know that.
When he comes back from injury, it seems to take some time for him to get his shot back and his rhythm back a little bit. Obviously, so many of his points now.
Usually because he's out for 18 months at a time.
Yeah. So many of his points that last game were on free throws, and not that, I don't have his stats right in front of me, but that just seems to be his track record. So
yeah, he was 12 for 12 from the line,
which is awesome.
Yeah,
obviously, people sleep on how many big men do you know that are going freaking 12 for 12 from the line? But I digress. So
he had 19 points in 24 minutes. I think that was the line, and then 12 from 12 from the line.
So yeah, just trying to ramp him up, probably get him back in shape and get his shot feeling good, get his rhythm back a little bit. That's all I'm concerned about. I'm way more concerned about that than the standings position that we're in. For me, that's just for me.
That's fair. I just don't want him to play the Celtics the first round because I don't want all of this hype for them to get the 8 seed and then to have to play the Celtics and have no chance. All of the hype of him coming back is just curtailed quickly because they're playing one of the best teams in recent history in the Boston Celtics. I'm not saying they can't beat them, But I think if they have to play them in the first round when Embiid is not quite up to full speed, gives them lesser of a chance than if they maybe played in a later round.
You want them to play the Celtics when he's up to full speed enough, but not going to get hurt again. You got to find that window, Colin.
He's not going to get hurt again. I told you when he got hurt.
Wow.
He got hurt already, and this is the silver lining for the season. He got hurt. Now he's going to come back in time for the playoffs, and then he's going to stay healthy because every season it's been the opposite. It's like 60, 70 games in through the season. Then he gets hurt, and then he's limping into the playoffs with an injury.
Just keep it healthy. Be like Philly Rob. Keep it healthy. Just stay healthy.
We just got to get healthy. I just really want to keep our guys healthy. I can't do a Philly Rob impersonation. He's really hard. I can do a lot of impersonations. I can't do him. I guess I've never tried.
We'll work on it. Let's maybe end with some Flyers talk, but two fun trivia-esque things that I wanted to run by you. Curious your thoughts.
By all means, Dan, please.
Both Phillies related. One was running through my head when we did the interview with Andrew.
Okay.
And I just, because I was trying to think, I was like, you know how it feels like every team in the playoffs has this one guy that's like to come off the bench. Used to be more so back in the day, obviously, when you had to pinch hit for the pitchers, of course. Mm-hmm. But still, even in today's game, I would say it's relevant.
Stairs? You're talking like a Matt Stairs?
Like Matt Stairs. That's so funny. I went like on a Matt Stairs deep dive last night after work. I can't even remember why.
Why? Of all people.
I don't know, man, because I love sports. I love sports. I just love sports. And it wasn't even that. It wasn't even like his... It was I think I was doing like Immaculate Grid or something, which raised me to one of my questions. But to hone it in, before we get to the Immaculate Grid thing, Matt Stairs, by the way, was like a hitting coach for several different teams. I think Phillies included post-career, found out. The San Diego Fathers as well. So a pinch hitter that I remember, and it felt like every single time he was in these really difficult situations, he always came through with a hit or a walk, sometimes a home run. I think but for most of his career at the Phillies, he was like a bench pinch hitter type guy. I don't think he ever really got a chance to be an everyday kind of guy. And then I think after his time with the Phillies, went to the Marlins. I want to say his era. I want you to guess who this is. Does anyone come to mind immediately? Obviously, I didn't give you much work with yet.
From Phillies to Marlins?
I think that his first team after the Phillies was the Marlins. I can confirm that now. And his years with the Phillies were 2007 to 2010.
The only guy that even remotely comes to mind is Raul Ibanez, but I know that's not correct. You're going to say it, and then I'm so Taguchi?
No, honestly, Colin, I didn't even know what position he played because I only knew him as like the guy that came off the bench and pinch hit. So if it's an everyday guy, it's not that guy. Do you have one more guess?
07 to 2010. So like when they were good, we're talking World Series run.
Yeah.
It's not is it the backup catcher that went Brian Schneider?
No.
You're going to say it. I'm going to recognize the name, but I can't.
Greg Dobbs.
Fucking Greg Dobbs.
Greg Dobbs.
What was he, number 3?
Oh,
what number was he? 3?
I'd have to look. Apparently, he was a first baseman. I don't ever remember him playing first.
I thought he was the third baseman.
Well, it says here first baseman, but a lot of times, maybe like later in his career, he became a first baseman. Maybe he was like a first, third kind of guy, like Baum.
Yeah, I thought he was the third guy.
It's possible that they're just showing like at the end of his career what he was.
Yeah.
But Greg Dobbs, do you remember Greg Dobbs, dude?
I remember Greg Dobbs. I didn't
realize he was on the World Series team.
I think my favorite bust out from the World Series team was So Taguchi.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I will always remember him being on the team.
And then the other one is I was trying to find a good deep dive for the Immaculate Grid last night. I was trying to find a Philly that played at least one game at shortstop. What would your answer have been?
One game at shortstop.
At least that has played at least one game at shortstop. A Philly.
Oh,
Give me something.
Carlos. Shit. I know who I'm thinking of. I can't think of his name though. Oh, I don't
know who you're talking about. I went with Eric Bruntlett.
Eric Bruntlett played shortstop?
At least one game.
Really?
Oh, yeah. One of the ugliest names I can ever remember seeing on a jersey. But nonetheless, Eric Bruntlett.
Carlos Santana? No, he was first baseman. That's what I was thinking of.
He played with the Phillies when the Phillies were pretty bad. He played on the Phillies when they had like Trevor Plouffe and Alfaro.
Jorge Alfaro, yeah.
He played on the Phillies when I think they played like an extra inning games against the Dodgers, and I think Trevor Plouffe, some position player pitched the extra innings maybe it was for the Dodgers. It was a weird one. No, it was the Dodgers. It was like it wasn't extra innings, and for some reason, extra innings, the Dodgers put a position player to pitch. I think it might have been Kike Hernandez, actually, if I'm not mistaken. That is some good trivia facts right there, my friend.
Better you than I, because there's one guy who played for the Phillies that was really good elsewhere. And I know he played shortstop for a couple of games, but I can't think of his name.
You could have gone Crawford. All right. But Flyers. Let's go Pens, by the way.
What? Why? Because they're playing somebody the Flyers need to lose?
Playing the Capitals, and they're up after the end of the first period, 0-2.
Let's go Pens. This will be the first and only time I ever say that.
Let's go Pens. And it's nice because the Pens are actually like trying to technically claw for a playoff spot, but they also just hate Washington. So they've got reason to play hard.
They got a rivalry. This is gonna piss me off that I can't think of this Phillies guy. I have to figure this out before I move on because I'm not going to be able to.
Well, you work on it. I don't have a planned thing to say for the Flyers except that I know that it's not this. It is not at all the same situation as what went down with the Eagles, but just the same feeling of a little bit of a major collapse at the end of the year when the table is set is just a little too close to home for me personally. I know it's not the same situation. The expectations certainly are not the same, and it does not take away in the same way that it did take away from the Eagles season and what was the beginning and middle part of their season and the successes. I don't think it has the same effect here with the Flyers because I think it's a smaller sample size, and obviously the expectations are much different. And then you include the injuries and some of these guys that are having to play so many minutes and are so clearly huffing and puffing at the end of some of these games. So it's not the same situation, but the whole collapse feeling is a little too close to home. It sucks that they what like 0-5 in their last 5, obviously not including including overtime losses, but man, come on, boys.
Yeah. 4-1, including overtime losses, I believe. Placido Polanco.
Mr. Forehead.
That was the guy I was thinking of. Finally found it. Now I can move on. Now I can move on to Flyers.
Placido Polanco was an awesome ball player, dude. He would chew gum, and you could just see the big, he had just had the biggest forehead, that poor guy.
And he played for the Phillies for 2 different stints, didn't he?
Maybe you're right. Maybe he came back at the end. It felt like he was a Philly for a long time.
Felt like it. But yes, the Flyers. No, they're 0-3-2 in their last 5.
Yeah, so 0-5, including overtime losses.
Yes. They are struggling. I was listening to our friend Jason Martinez's Flyers Daily today. I don't know if you caught it, but he broke down the 68 games into 19-game quadrants. And it was very telling about the trajectory of which the Flyers team has been on this year, to the point where the Flyers' goal differential over the first 19 games was plus 12. The second quarter was -1, third quarter -2. The most recent quarter, the last 19 games, their goal differential is -21.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that is a culmination of multiple things. 1, trade of Sean Walker. 2, injuries. 3, Sam Ersson being the primary goaltender, having had to play 12 out of 15 games in a calendar month, and them not having a solid backup. I think these are all minor things that are adding up to a major issue. This is not to say the panic button is on, because I think we can all say if we were sitting here on April 4th talking about the Flyers in a playoff position and being disappointed in them not making the playoffs, the old adage is, you would have all told me I was nuts. But this is where we are, and I think we still need to wrap our heads around where we are based on where this season began, because I know expectations shift during a sports season. They do with every sport, every season, from beginning to end. Things change based on how you expect them to win or begin and how you expect them to end. If they miss the playoffs, would it suck? Yes. If they miss the playoffs, is it the absolute end of the world? Collapse Philly, burn the city down, trade everybody, fire? No. We need to keep a level head. If they don't make the playoffs, that's my position. Dan, do you have an
okay? That's fine.
The floor is
That's
yours.
fine. And you heard what I just said about how it's not the same situation as the Eagles season for those exact reasons, expectations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Having said that, Colin, I do think as I hear that, I do feel like there is a little bit of big loser energy in that route. And I do feel like, even though, to your point, it's not like a playoffs or bust situation, and I think that this is very much backed up by quotes that Torts has been giving. We're taking notes. Like, we're taking notes of how guys perform or don't perform when the pressure cooker is on. Like, in the same way that yes, it's not playoff or bust. Like, okay, let's see who steps it up. Let's see who can push through this tough time, because every season they're going to feel at this point in the season some level of fatigue and tiredness, and that's going to be a constant. I know that there's unique variables for this current situation, but it doesn't mean that those same variables won't be in play to some degree for future seasons. And honestly, those variables are in play as far as losing players to injury or whatever for other teams as well. Everyone's kind of dealing with that to some degree. Like, if they just collapse here and they lose and lose and lose, I don't know. I think this is a little bit of a good test. Even if they don't make the playoffs, you want to see these guys be able to battle through this and see which players are going to fight through the fatigue and some of those variables that we discussed. I think that there's a lot to be learned here, even if they don't make the playoffs, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think there's a lot to be learned, and that's maybe a big middle ground between, oh, we didn't make the playoffs, so we made it a lot. We made it a lot further than we thought we would at the beginning of the year. I'm not saying like, oh, we got to make the playoffs, but come on, guys. Like, let's see what you got when things get hard. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I absolutely agree with you there. And Tortorella, I mean, he's had a lot of public response to his PR, his press conferences over the last few games. I believe his direct quote was, "Some guys don't know what they're doing. Some guys don't know how to play in these situations." Okay, this is not a direct quote, but he goes on to say, "And that's why I'm glad we're playing them."
Yeah.
We are finding out who is too old to play, who's too young to play, who knows what they're doing, who doesn't know what they're doing, who is ready for playoff hockey. Because from now until the end of the season, it's do or die. They either nut up or shut up. They're going to make it. They're not gonna, and it's all on them. If they win out, they're going to make the playoffs because the other teams chasing them aren't going to win out. Now, are they going to win out? Probably not. But I feel as though they still have their fate in their own hands, and it's going to come down to the effort and the skill that they're able to show over these next, 6 games? I think 6 games till the regular season ends.
And I want to be clear here. I'm not just talking about like who goes out there and plays well when things get hard. Who goes out there and skates good and scores goals. I'm talking like, how are these guys with their teammates when things get hard and when it's crunch time? Who are the leaders? Who's stepping up when we go 0-5 and we're freaking trying to pull ourselves into a playoff position and things are really hard? Like, there is so much to be learned in these kind of situations, and I really think that it can exploit guys in good ways and in bad ways. And I just think that's what I mean, as far as the taking notes and trying to learn and make the most of this situation, regardless of outcome, playoffs or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a big opportunity for guys, I think, for good or for bad. But I think that, yeah, Torts' quotes, especially the ones that I've heard in the last couple of days, have been outstanding, because I think he's had a couple quotes where he has reflected and given attention to the fact that, yeah, we've had a great season, and this, what's happening now, does not take away from everything else that has happened. But then he's also open and honest with the current situation, is kind of like doing a little put up or shut up, like, let's see. But I don't know, man. The more quotes I hear from him, he's a tough guy. He's mean, but he
takes no bull.
He seems fair, man. And guys seem to it seems to work. It seems to work, man. I don't know.
I don't know what it's like inside of a hockey locker room, but he seems very much to call it like it is. And if you don't like it, tough shit, because it's probably something you don't want to hear and you're trying to deny on yourself. That would be my interpretation of it.
And I think he's very willing to make himself the bad guy and the guy that you can target, and maybe part of what happens there is the team kind of can put that agitation towards the bad guy or the coach, and then kind of they can bind together through that. I think there's something to that as well. Screw this guy. Let's freaking show him we are good.
Yeah, exactly. He pisses off his players by calling them out in press conferences, seeing if they respond. I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'm not an NHL hockey player, but we are going to find out over the next 6 games. That is one thing we will do, is find out. We're going to find out. Ivan Fedotov, do you have any takeaways from his game on Monday? Did you get to watch?
We shared the Pinto story real quick. You think you could give the abridged version of the Fedotov story?
I believe I can. So Ivan Fedotov was drafted by the Flyers back in 2015, if I'm correct. 2021, he's getting ready to leave his KHL contract, come to the NHL, play for the Flyers, when he is arrested by the Russian authorities for evading his military duty. He's getting ready to play for the Flyers, and he is literally hijacked, arrested, sent to Siberia to work for the Russian Navy in the Arctic Circle. Does a tour of service up there. gets released.
Oh my gosh.
His contract with the Flyers, the Russians said, I don't know what you're talking about. You're going to play in Russia. Plays 2 years for CSKA Moscow in the KHL. And for all intents and purposes, by everybody who has talked about or has thought about the Flyers prospects, Ivan Fedotov was a persona non grata. We're never going to see him. We're never going to hear from him. He's going to be playing in Russia forever. Until last week, when all of a sudden rumors are surrounding that Moscow has terminated his contract. They bid him adieu. He's on his way to Philadelphia. Within 36 hours, he went from he's never playing in Philadelphia to he's having a conversation with a press conference with Danny Briere. And then that following Monday, he's playing hockey for your Philadelphia Flyers. Now, if you haven't seen it, please look it up. The Flyers posted a photo of Ivan Fedotov in goal, standing up, kind of waving his arm up in the air. And he looks like an adult who's standing in front of a child's plastic goal net, because this man is 6'7" on shoes, which makes him 6'9" on skates. And with your helmet, the goalie mitt or goalie bucket, probably 6'11" with all that padding up there.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
He looks so crammed in front of the net.
Russian freakazoid is now playing goaltender for the Flyers, and I love it.
Well, being in Pittsburgh, the story is reminiscent of what people tell me around here with Evgeny Malkin, and they've always told me that he basically had to sneak out of Russia so that he could come play hockey here. And
I believe it, and especially since the whole Ukrainian-Russian war and the U.S. trying to stick their mitts in there somewhere, you have to be very careful about Russian players and extracting them from Russia. Somehow Danny Briere has been able to figure out how to, because their other goaltender who was in Russia, Alexei Kolosov, is now in the U.S. after being in Russia at the same time as Fedotov, and is playing for the Phantoms. So we have now 2 Russian goaltenders, one with the Phantoms, one with the Flyers, who are in the pipeline of goaltenders in Philadelphia. We'll find out what Sam Ersson is. I think he's one of those players who, over these next 6 games, we will find out his medal. We will find out Fedotov. Actually, we're going to have to give Fedotov a little bit more than just 3 games in the NHL. But early returns were good on Monday.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that I can't remember if this was from Jason or someone else. I saw that even though he's only here for like 6-8 games, whatever it is, this counts. This is going to count as like his 1-year deal or whatever on his contract with the Flyers. So to keep him, they'll probably have to do some kind of extension or something. But yeah, I mean, it's the timing of it is actually like insane, right? The fact that this just loosened up out of nowhere at a time where Ersson is so clearly, well, not even the playoffs, just the fact that Ersson seems clearly gassed and
needs
a break.
Gassed.
And then this guy all of a sudden comes from Russia to help give him a breather. Like, what? It's crazy, dude.
Danny Briere. I'm gonna put this on the record right now. I will be shocked if the Flyers don't win a Stanley Cup before 2028 or by 2028.
All right.
Within the next 4 seasons, they are going to win a Stanley Cup. That is how much faith I have in Danny Briere as a general manager, solely based on his first season of making moves. Jason talked about it, how he's a first-year GM, but he's making moves with depth and foresight to the future that a extremely tenured veteran GM would make.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to see what the results are. When Matvei Vichkov gets over here, when all of these prospects who they have been able to acquire and will be able to acquire with having 6 top 2 round picks over the next 3 years, they have a first and a second in each of the next 3 drafts or something like that. Anyway, they have a lot of good draft picks over the next 3 years. I'm sorry. They have 12 top 2-round picks over the next 3 years, 2 firsts, 2 seconds in each of the next 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about, but to kind of bring it all back to the starting point here, let's see something now. Let's see some fight. Let's see some fight from these guys now when things are hard. And it's nice they got it'll end up being like 3 days total of rest. Was their last game on Tuesday?
Yes, Tuesday to Friday.
Okay. So listen, they got some rest. Take a breather. Now.
Sorry, no, they played Monday. Monday, full 3 days rest. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They will play tomorrow night at Buffalo.
Go grab your lunch pail because you got back-to-backs. You're not going to have time to do any meal prep in between. Grab your lunch pail. Get your water. Hydration is key, and let's get to work. Okay, let's get to work. Let's see who steps up here. I felt bad, man. The way the last game went down, I think it was York had officially the last goal with 9 seconds left. They just fought their tails off to get that last goal. Unbelievable effort. Tippett saving the empty netter, but Tippett. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Tippett busts his ass, dives to block the empty netter attempt, and then blocks it, gets up, chases down the puck, and then sprints the entire length of the freaking rink to go to the other end and get the team back on offense. That was unbelievable effort. And then they end up coming back, tying it up with seconds left. And then that very player that scored that goal gave a really awful turnover, basically giving the Islanders a chance for a somewhat easy goal, minus a 6'8" goalie in front of the net. But yeah, but like you can see once you get to, they had to be so tired because they were basically busting their ass with an extra skater for like 4 minutes just trying to tie the damn game. But some rest is good. Let's see it, and let's hope that we can kind of get ahead in some of these games so we don't have to be put in those situations where we're clawing at the very end to get back in the game,
Yes, they do have 3 very easy games coming up, all on the road. Friday against Buffalo, Saturday against Columbus, Tuesday against Montreal.
3-0. Let's go, Pens. Sorry.
Hey, that's good for the Flyers. So 6 games left in the regular season. Will the Flyers make the playoffs? I say yes. Dan, what say you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fuck it. Why not, right?
It's going to come down to that last game against the Caps.
Dude. So that's a Tuesday. We might need to do a post-game Flyers review, if late night pod. Maybe.
All right, let's get there though. Let's get there.
Okay.
But if it very well could happen, if it comes
down to that game getting them into the regular season, I do not want to be on the podcast while that game's going on. I would like to live respond to it if we're able to do so.
Right.
Now, this is looking ahead 2 weeks. Crazy. It feels like just yesterday I was watching preseason Flyers hockey down at the Wells Fargo Center, sitting second row against the Bruins. Oh, hockey season's back up. Now it's almost mid-April. Hockey's almost over. Fingers crossed it's not, but we got 2 weeks of the regular season, and it's going to be a load of fun to watch. We got Phillies, we got Sixers, we got Flyers. The draft is 3 weeks from tonight. Everything's on the table. All right, Dan, I need to go do some laundry and get my shit together because I got to work early in the morning. But this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, great pod. Shout out to Andrew. A lot of fun. Can't wait and hope to be able to talk more Phils with him at some point. We got to keep these interview style pods coming. A lot of fun, man. A lot of juice.
I agree.
It's worth the squeeze.
It's a lot of fun to get another person's perspective on the program, especially somebody who does this for a living, as Jason and Andrew both do. I have a couple of other people I might be able to reach out to, see if we can get them on the pod.
Driver included.
Sorry?
Driver included. If anyone has any inside information on the driver for Pinto, go ahead and hit our hotline up or email us or something. Let us know.
Yes, please. If anybody works for the Phillies and knows who drove Ricardo Pinto to Citizens Bank Park for Ricardo, you can hit our hotline at 412-771-87. I forget the number.
That's not the number. That's a real shame. 412-444-8710.
See, I said 871. I got the numbers mixed up. I'm sorry. I don't have the number in front of me, and we also don't advertise it as much as we should. So that is my fault. And this is Colin Berger signing off from Del Valley Sports Pod Radio. Just kidding. Dan, you got anything for the people on the way out?
Nah, just stay classy.
And go Sixers, and go Flyers, and go Phillies. Because it's baseball season, boys.
MV3, Bryce freaking Harper.
We love it. All right. Thank you for listening. Nenen, if you're still listening, I love you. It's been a good one. Dan, I will talk to you next week, and I will talk to all of you guys next week.
Later, Gator.
Best of luck.